Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to discuss identifying your MBTI type. Have you taken online tests to find out what MBTI type you are and found that you got inconsistent results? Sometimes you come out as one type and sometimes another. It can be frustrating, especially with all the YouTube channels that are focused on one particular type or another. If you don't know what type you are, it is tough to know which site would apply best to you. There are 4 distinct parts of an MBTI type, and to know your type, you need to differentiate between the 2 possibilities for each of the 4 parts. When I'm trying to figure out the type of someone I know, but who hasn't taken a test, I do my best to separate these parts out for that person. It is easier to do it for yourself, but it can be quite useful in typing others as well. Here is a flow diagram that shows the processes we must work through to use this method to type someone. Starting at the top, you come down to a question. Extrovert? The full question is, of course, are you an extrovert? Or is the person you're trying to identify the type for an extrovert? To the right, you will see a box with an E and an I. The answer to the question will tell you which of these 2 letters applies. If you answer yes to the question, the first letter is an E. Otherwise, the first letter will be an I. But how do you know if you are extroverted or not? You run through an extrovert check. I wrote up a thought experiment for you to consider. You were at a large party, and you are now driving home from that party. You had a great deal of interaction with lots of people. There was dancing and music, people laughing, and there was lots of small talk as people relaxed. Everyone was friendly, and there were no confrontations or disagreements. It was as nice as a party could be. So, as you were driving home, how do you feel? Are you feeling sad because the party is over and you wish it could have gone on longer? Did you have just enough fun and you were feeling really up about the night's activities, happy that you came? Or are you worn out by all the socializing and having to deal with small talk and working to appear engaged in all the activities? You may have had some fun, but you are completely wiped out emotionally. You are enjoying the quiet of the car, and you are looking forward to getting home where you can have some time to recharge your emotional batteries. An extrovert will enjoy parties usually. People give him energy, making him feel alive and excited. The interaction with others is like filling his emotional tank so he can soar with the eagles. An introvert will find such interaction to create a leak in his emotional gas tank, and he is under a strain most of the time he is engaged in this activity. He may find a person to talk with who will share his love of some mental joys, and such a conversation can be quite enjoyable. But talking with lots of people about shallow topics and trying to appear comfortable in a loud, busy place is difficult. He will be tired at the end and ready for a lot of quiet time alone. If you are unclear still on whether you are an E or an I, apply the ideas in the extrovert check over a longer period of time. How have you reacted generally to unfamiliar places with lots of people? Say the first day of a new class with students you don't know, or the first day at a new job with new coworkers. Do you look forward not to the class or the job so much as you do meeting new people? Or might you find that you are looking forward to the class or the job, but you have to get past the challenge of meeting new people? There is an outward focus to an extrovert, and he is eager to engage the people out there in the world. There is an inward focus for the introvert, and he is happy to be alone and to contemplate the world and its people from afar. So we now have either an E or an I in place for the first letter in your type. The next letter has to do with sensing or intuition. These are perceiving functions, or the way you take in information about the world around you. Are you an S, a sensor, or an N, an intuitive? If you are not sure, let's check. 3/4 of the population are sensors. This means that if all things being equal, you simply guess S or sensor, you will be right 3 out of 4 times. However, even with high odds in favor of your guess, it will not provide certainty. We need to make sure. So, picture yourself in a junkyard and you're walking around. There are wrecked cars and some parts that are in boxes on shelves. And as you are looking around, you see a car that Dad once owned, and he really liked it. In the air there's a smell of oil, and you rub your hand over the fender of a red car with its paint oxidized by the sunlight. The place seems disorganized. Or perhaps your mind wanders to the source of all these machines and parts. That yellow Ford looks lonely, and you wonder what the original owner was feeling as he sat in the showroom with the salesman pushing the sale forward. Was he excited? Was he eager to take it out for a long drive? Do you wonder what sorts of cars would be in a wrecking yard of the future? Would they be flying cars? Fully autonomous cars? Or maybe you are captivated by the things around you and you see the rust and crushed parts of the cars. You see the details clearly and note that some windows are in great shape while others are cracked or shattered. You see other people in the yard, and you see a machine that you would love to own if it were not wrecked. You might contemplate the need for wrecking yards, what purpose they serve. You might study the form of the shapes around you and pull together a mental composition of a scene that would look good as a photograph or a sketch. Are you an S or an N? If you are a sensor, you will be in the moment and see all the details around you. You will feel the wind and see people walking. You will note things about specific objects like their shape and condition. Your feet will note the muddy ground quickly. You might have memories triggered by the things you sense with connections to past experiences. If you are an intuitive, your mind will run all the input from your senses through a long path of processing. There are many opportunities for branching off into patterns, potential, history, and projections into the future for all the things you are seeing, feeling, and smelling, etc. Okay, we now have the first two letters for our type. You're either E or I, and S or N. Moving down the flowchart, we next come to the question, are you a feeler? If you answer yes, you are an F, and if not, you are a T. Being a feeler doesn't mean you have feelings. We all have feelings. This is aimed at how you make decisions and what motivates you to action. Do you use facts and logic to decide, or do you consider first how your decisions will make either yourself or others feel about what you chose to do? Thinkers feel and feelers think. That is not what this is about. It is strictly about what you prefer to use when you decide things. The population is split fairly evenly between feelers and thinkers. However, this is not sex neutral. If you are female, you are more likely to be a feeler, and if you are male, you are more likely to be a thinker. Both sexes have both types in abundance, however. To help sort through this, let's consider some situations and find what is your first gut reaction to each of them. Little Johnny was warned to stay away from the cookies. You walk into the kitchen and catch him red-handed with crumbs around his mouth and his hand reaching into the cookie jar for another treat. Do you think, the poor guy was hungry. I love cookies too, but I told him not to do this. And so you lift him down to the floor, put the lid back on the jar, and tell Johnny that he was bad and he better not do it again. Or do you send him to his room or whatever punishment you find appropriate without any hesitation? We all joke about the excuse that the dog ate a kid's homework when he didn't have it to hand in. But what if he truly had a good reason for not handing it in? Is the student who does the homework and hands it in on time on the same ground as the student who has a good reason for not doing the homework? Perhaps your boss wanted a report from you before Friday and you got sick and didn't get it done. Is a good excuse the same as getting the job done? One view is yes, it just wasn't in the cards, and so a good excuse gives the guy a pass. Another view is that an excuse might explain why something didn't get done, but it doesn't finish the job that needs to be done. They are not at all the same thing. You could flip this around as well. What if you were a customer and a business committed to providing you a product or service no later than today, and the representative told you that the one who would do the work had a personal problem arise and didn't get the job done? If you are a feeler, you might empathize with the excuse and worry about the employee and his problem. A thinker might react by saying that the commitment was made unconditionally and personal problems are the responsibility of the company, not the customer. Another situation to think about. If you are the leader of a team, would you tend to step away for a bit and look things over, objectively analyzing the goal and who in the group was best suited to each task that would be required? Or would you pull the team together around you to work out how best to tackle the project? If you are a feeler, you tend to consider how feelings will be impacted by your choices. Will acting in one way make things more harmonious, or would you need to act in a different way? If you are a thinker, you tend to consider the facts, the results, the efficiency, with little or no regard as to how anyone will feel about your choices. Now we have narrowed it down to only one letter left to identify. We now know if we are extroverted or introverted, a sensor or an intuitive, and a feeler or a thinker. What's left? Are you a perceiver or a judger? Let's check. Once again, the population is split down the middle with a nearly equal number of perceivers and judgers. Also, again, it will vary by sex. Men make up most of the perceivers, and women most of the judgers. So, how do we tell the difference between a P and a J? Think about taking a vacation. What would you be most comfortable with? Do you like having a lot of flexibility and doing whatever happens to present itself? Do you find it stimulating to have plans change and something new to pop up to do? Or do you tend to avoid surprises, finding them to be troubling? Do you like knowing exactly what you will be doing each day and plan it all out? Another situation that will help to clarify this area would be if you were in the middle of a project that is important but not immediately necessary to have completed, and the phone rang. Do you welcome the distraction, or do you tend to feel angry? On the phone is a friend who is going to be coming right over if you are available. Are you happy for the change and welcome the call? Or are you upset, possibly feeling a knot in your stomach as you are dealing with this unwelcome interruption? Rather than looking at a specific situation, think about life in general. Do you move from task to task, sometimes dropping one to finish another, and then moving back to the original task? Do you sort of pick things up along the way that you see need to be done and juggle several tasks at the same time? Do you really like spontaneous surprises? Or do you like knowing your routine and what is coming, and you get a real joy out of bringing a task to completion? You refuse to let anything move you out of your path to reaching your goal. Do sudden changes of plan and interruptions really bug you? A perceiver tends to be open to spontaneous events and very much prefers flexibility to structure. A judger wants to get things done right now. He tends to focus on a project until completion and only then looks to find a new project. Interruptions are unwelcome. A change in plans at the last minute is upsetting. We have reached the bottom of the flowchart now. We have done our best to pick the 4 correct letters for our type so we can know what our full type is. I can say that in each case I fall clearly into the INTJ area. I am introverted, intuitive, thinking, and judging without any quibbling. I'm not in a shade of gray on any of these 4 parts. If you are still unsure on one or more of these parts for yourself, I recommend zeroing in on those specific parts and see if you can clarify where your preferences lie. There are lots of resources online to assist in identifying each of these preferences. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please hit like, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'll see you next time.